for the thousands of you that showed up today. I appreciate that. It's basically just for you two. The training's just for you two. No, so for those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Joshua Boatman. I am the Regional Technology Director for Keller Williams, Ohio Valley Region, which basically just means I have a really cool job. I get to help you guys with tech, right? You guys are awesome. I like technology. When you can help awesome people use something that you love, it's a great job to have. So before I dive into anything, if you've ever attended any of my trainings, I always like to start off with a joke. What did the buffalo say to his son when he dropped him off for college? You know what? Here's the problem. Here's the problem with people like you. Who does that? Do you go to a comedy club and just ruin it? Like, that's fine. He does say bye, son. All right, I got one more for you. What did the egg say at the house party? Nope. Omelet. See? See, that's a little bit more racy. It's a little bit more adult. Hopefully you can handle the humor. All right. So today we're going to dive into some advanced stuff with the website. So just to kind of set some expectations on this is not going to be walking you through how to set up your website, claim your domain name, any of those things. We're going to make the assumptions that you know how to do that you've already done it. If you don't know that, Pamela is amazing. She's a great resource, can help you do all of this. The other thing with this, I'm going to try to go as slow as I can to walk through the steps of certain things, but generally this is not designed to be a workshop style class. This is more lecture style in the idea that it's going to kind of give you ideas on how you can start to leverage our technology. And then once again, Pamela is going to be a great resource to kind of help you take these things to the next level. So without further ado, I am logged into my agent or into command. And what I'm going to do is go immediately to websites over here on the left-hand side at the very bottom icon in the lower left-hand corner. When I click on it, the first thing I want to mention, this isn't necessarily advanced, but this is just something you should know. KW has improved the agent search functionality on kw.com. You guys now have the ability to pick your service areas. So now if someone's searching in a particular city or a particular county and you want to appear in that search because that's an area you serve, you now have the ability to do that. It's very, very easy. When you do click on the websites temporarily, we do have this little blue bar that's going to say, hey, this is new. You can promote where you live, all these amazing things, and you can click service area settings to immediately go in there. Eventually, though, the blue bar is going to go away. So the way you would go and access this is actually going to be under the Manage Settings option. And then under Manage Settings over here on the left-hand side, we're going to scroll down and you're going to select Preferences. Oh, wait, hold on. That's not right. Oh, you know what it is? Let me switch to my personal command. There we go. I'm in my personal command. I was in my team command. My apologies. You're going to select Service Areas. Now, I want to caution you. It's going to be a little slow. Mostly for me because I am a part of multiple market centers. Because I'm a part of multiple market centers, it's going to default a lot of things. Each one of you have default service areas already set based upon your market center. I am a part of 25 market centers in the region. So as you can imagine, my defaults are kind of crazy, right? So just kind of walking through this, I'm going to show you a couple things that you need to be aware of. Up at the top is your favorite areas. You can have up to 10 of these. What that basically means is that on your profile, whatever you have dragged to this section will appear within your profile as your 10 favorite service areas, right? Doesn't mean you won't be surfaced in all the other service areas that you have listed. It just means these are the ones that we are going to highlight within your profile. You can't have 100 service areas and then have 100 service areas show up on your profile. That would be insanity, right? A couple things to keep in mind with this. These are all drag and drop. So to edit these service areas, you're going to hit the edit button. And we're going to give it a few seconds to go into edit mode. And then the order you drag them in for your favorites is going to be important because when you move them to, hold on, why is this not? Oh, when you hit the little, sorry, you're going to hit the heart icon. When you hit the heart icon, that's going to move them to your favorites. Now, once again, it's really slow on my end because I have so many. It should be a little bit faster for you. The first area you have is going to be your default number one area. And then as you go through, you can just add additional ones, looking up the different areas. If you're looking at this and you're like, holy crap, I don't service Adams, Indiana, you can remove that from your service area by hitting the little X to the right of each one. There is sections for cities. There are sections for counties. There are sections for school districts as well. So you may want to take some time and go through here and adjust whatever areas you are actually serving. Additionally, if you want to see it from a different view, there is this open map view. When we click on this is actually going to open these service areas up in a giant map view so you can actually kind of see what is selected. This is really cool because you can not only zoom in here, you can see because of all the different market centers I'm a part of, I'm all across the region, but you can zoom in, you can deselect service areas, you can reselect service areas. And what's really, really neat, you actually have this little pencil icon where with this, oh, well, hold on, not that one, sorry. Where do we need to go for that? Where is it? It's not showing up on my screen. Anyways, I disregard. But you have the ability to really filter and highlight the different service areas that you truly want to see on a map perspective. Highly recommend you guys take time to do this because this is what's going to be used on kw.com to surface where you show up. Any quick questions on this? I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time on it because you guys are here for advanced stuff. This is just something that's recently launched within the last month that I just wanted to make you aware of because this is kind of important. How you show up is important on how you show up under what searches and whatnot.
Is that factoring just consumer or side, or what about like if agents are looking for referrals, will it still factor in that?
This is purely for kw.com. If when you want to set yourself up for referrals, in a sense, for a service area, that's still all done through the referrals applet. And with that, it's not really service areas, right? Because what they're able to see is where you've sold. The power of the referrals applet is you get to see the last 12 months of what an agent's done production wise and where they are at. And then that's how agents can typically say, hey, you seem like you do a lot of deals in so-and-so. You can still surface that information in your profile, but that's not how agents find you. The last thing I'll mention, if you go through here and you're being crazy and you're moving a bunch of things, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I just want to start over. You can hit reset. And what that's going to do is just reset you back to your market center's original service areas. So just as a heads up. All right, enough of that. I don't want to spend too much time on that. Other than there's one other thing I do want to mention that a lot of people often forget about our websites. Over here on the left-hand side, we do have the forced registration option. For those of you unaware of forced registration, this is important. This is where you can set limits on the number of properties someone can view on your website before you force them to register. The biggest mistake I see a lot of agents do is they leave it under unrestricted. They let people view as many properties on their websites as they want. While, and most of them, their mindset is, well, Josh, no one's going to register for my website when they can go and find the properties on other places. That's your mindset because you know where to go and find other properties. The average consumer, this next generation, they don't mind registering for anything. They'll register for everything, right? They don't care, right? They want convenience. So I highly recommend you live in the 2 to 10 property viewing, but stay away from unrestricted and no property viewing, because one thing to keep in mind, forced registration, that's how Boomtown generates leads. That's how Sync generates leads. Any of these other lead generating sources, HomeLight, that's how HomeLight generates leads. They drive people to a page and then they force them to register. It works. All right. So now let's actually dive into some advanced stuff. So today we are going to really start to look into how you can take your Keller Williams website and start to integrate other things in it. So we are going to live in the expert mode today. So expert mode is not the basic mode that you're currently seeing in front of you. This is actually going to be the back end of the website where you have a lot more flexibility. So to get there, from the website applet, we're going to click Manage Website. And then ignore the red banner. I'm in a lab, so ignore that. We're going to see the expert mode option in the upper right-hand corner. When I do expert mode, this is going to take me into the true back end of the website where I can start to change certain things. The first thing that I'm going to highlight that most people aren't taking advantage of within their website, and it's a little bit more advanced, is our property landing page template. So right when you're on the page, you're under quick start, there's this ability to create a property landing page template. This is where you have the ability to create what we used to refer to back in the day as a single listing website, right? Most people, when you're advertising your listing on Facebook, right, you get this nice brand new listing, whatever it is, you're advertising it on Facebook. You're probably just sending them to the listing page on your website, right? You went and you did a search for the listing on your website, and then you copied that URL, and that's where you're sending people when you're running that Facebook ad. Well, you have the ability to build a more unique, flashier version of that page. So one of the really neat things I want to point out to you, they've done a really great job. If you're on this new property landing page, here's a link to the how-to article. This will link you to the answers article that will kind of walk you through how this works. I'm going to walk through the broad strokes. We're not going to spend 20 minutes building a listing page, but I just want to show you some of these features so that way you're aware of how cool this actually is. So with anything, just a quick breakdown, whenever we're in expert mode and we're building things, the left-hand side, this is where we build, right? This is where we plug the things in that we're going to do. On the right-hand side, this is going to be our preview, right? This is just where we can see as we're building on the left-hand side, the changes we're making, they're going to be previewed on that right-hand side. Additionally, just a quick call out, you do have the ability over here to adjust the preview. So as you're building your pages, as you're making adjustments, if you want to see what they look like on a desktop, on a tablet, on a mobile, in landscape or portrait or whatever it is, you can do that. A couple of things that I always kind of tell people, whenever we're building websites, whenever we're building things for design, don't necessarily, while you do want it to look good on desktop, if you can, on the desktop view, the reality of it is you always want to build for mobile, right? The vast majority of people that go to websites this day and age are going to them on their cell phone versus their tablet versus their desktop versus their laptop, right? Hopefully you guys would agree with that. So whenever we're building things and we're trying to design things out, I always highly recommend you just take advantage of the portrait mode. But that doesn't mean don't pay attention to the desktop. But if it doesn't look great on the desktop, but it looks great on the mobile mode, I think that's okay. All right. So when we're quickly building a listing, it's really going to be really easy. We're on the left-hand side here. We're going to search for a listing. So I'm just going to plug in an address and let's see what we get. Come on. Let's try. Why is it not pulling up an address for me? There we go. All right, I'm just going to grab one. Doesn't really matter. This is, of course, tied into our KWLS. Once we select the listing, it's now going to appear on the screen, right? We can, of course, add a custom page title. This is important. So this would be like, welcome to 309 Troy Street. Bless you. All right, as we go further down, we have the ability to do a custom image or a custom video, or just use the default listing videos. So a custom image could be allowing us to upload a higher quality version, or since this is the idea you're using these for your specialty properties, you may have had a video done of the property. And maybe that video lives on YouTube or Vimeo, right? So what we could actually do is drop this down, select custom video. It's then going to say, hey, please make sure the video is in a supported format. This would be if we want to upload the video, right? If we have the video file itself, like our photographer sent it to us, we can do that. But if it's also live on YouTube or Vimeo, we can link to that. So this is how a lot of these sections are going to work. You're going to see where we can search for a video. So I can hit the little magnifying glass, and this is going to show a list of all the videos that I've uploaded, whether I've uploaded them or if I've linked them via Vimeo or YouTube. I will go down to the lower left-hand corner, and I can see I have three options. Is it a Vimeo URL? Is it a YouTube URL? Or is it a video file that I actually want to upload? In this case, I'm going to do video, YouTube URL, and I'm going to click New. It's now going to pop up this box that I'm going to add my YouTube URL. Now, this is not a KW listing. This is just one I grabbed for the purposes of this class. So don't get upset. I don't even know who it is. But I'm gonna plug it in there, right? And all I did was copy the URL of that YouTube video, plugged it in here, and then I need to give it a name, right? The internal name is incredibly important when we add things to our backend site, because this is how we're gonna identify it to then later add it to different pages. So for instance, I'm just gonna call this luxury video. But in your case, you may want to do the address of the property, right? Just if you're uploading multiple, that way you have them. And that's pretty much it. I don't need to do anything else. There's a default thumbnail that I can change if I want. All that stuff's fine. The description really doesn't matter because no one's really going to see it. It could potentially help with SEO stuff, but that's a different level of a class. And then I'm just going to hit publish. Yes, ma'am.
So the title, is that what gets added to the HTML that gets connected to the videos?
So this is how the internal name is how we identify what it is when we're plugging it in. And that'll make sense here in a second. So here I named it luxury video, and we can see that I hit publish. It's been published. So now I'm going to click back. Now you can see I have my new video. So to give you an idea, if I go over here and I search, I can go to like my list mode, and now I'm going to see there's my luxury video that I uploaded. There's the label, so I can identify that video. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So then once I click on it, it plugs it in. And now what will happen when someone goes to this page, we're seeing that preview at the very top, the video will play in the background of the header image, right?
That's sleeping.
So it's really, really simple, really, really cool, and it creates a unique look. That's just it for the featured video image, right? Now, when we go further down, we have our contents section. This is where we determine what information we want to show. So, for instance, I have the property landing, the core details. When I click on this, this is where I can enter in a property title, right? So we'll just type something in. Right? And of course, as I'm doing things on the left-hand side, it's going to start to plug things in. So if you don't quite know where something's going to go, just start typing it in, because now you can see it plugged in 123 Sesame Street here. Here I could say, welcome to your future home. Welcome to this, welcome to that, you know, hidden gem, whatever it is you guys do when you do selling. You know, additionally, as we go forward, we can actually hide certain things. Maybe I don't want to show the price of the property. I can click hide price. Right? Maybe I don't want to show the address of the property. I can hide the address, right? There's different things that it's pulling all of this from the MLS that I can go through, and maybe I don't want that property description showing up, so I hide that description, right? You can pick and choose what you showcase on this unique page.
What would the benefit be on hiding the price?
It's a great question. So think of it like this. There could be certain listings where the seller isn't revealing the price of the home, right? It's kind of like the best way I've always described it is, you ever go to a restaurant where the price isn't on the menu, right? And the classic, if you have to ask, you can't afford it, right? It's kind of, sometimes they're hidden listings, they're pockety type listings. They're trying to create mystique, right? So that way they reach out to you to learn more about it. It creates engagement. Transparently, probably doesn't happen a lot in our region, but in some of the other outlying regions where there are like 20, $30 million properties, they probably hide the price. They probably hide certain things around it. Does that make sense? All right. And it's real simple, right? You just kind of go through, you can turn things off and on, really, really easy. And of course, when we're in this content section, we can always shrink a section. You'll notice it has the little up arrow when I click it. Now it's shrunken. If I want to go back into it, I just click that up arrow, that down arrow, and I can make those adjustments. It's just easy to bounce in and around. Then, of course, we have our agent information. Now, what you're going to notice here, this doesn't actually let us expand. This is just showing, here is our agent information bar. It's just pulling our information. It's on our website. You can't adjust it. You can't change it. All that information is somewhere else. But what this does allow you to do is change the order of it, right? These little handles here, when you drag and drop, you can change the order of these content blocks. So for some odd reason, if you wanted your information to appear first, above the fold in the sense, above the content block, you can do that. We dragged it up and now you're gonna see, here's my information. And now here is that block. So you have the flexibility to kind of change the order of how the information is presented. If for some reason you wanted to get rid of one of these blocks, that's what this little red arrow or line does. If I do this, now it's not even going to show my agent information on there for whatever reason. I don't know why I would want to do it, but you have that flexibility to do it. The image carousel, incredibly simple. This is once again just going to show the image carousels. You can't actually expand it, right? Because it's just these are the images that came over from the MLS. But if you wanted to get rid of those images, you could, or change where those images show up, you can do that. Same idea with the map view. When you look at the map view, this basically gives you the ability to showcase the map where the property is. You can hide boundary lines if you want to do that within, it's real simple, right? We can do this and it's just we'll hide those boundary lines on the map. So now it's just showing here is the property. And then last but not least is our default contact title. This is just going to be our little interested, let's talk down here at the bottom. Additionally, you have the ability to add modules. So this is where you can add additional pieces of information. One of the ones you may want to be aware of is the custom content block. This is where you can actually upload additional photos that you want to highlight that may not be a part of whatever's in the MLS. Examples of these vary from different things. Sometimes they could just be more lifestyle photos of like the area that the property is in. Maybe it's pictures of the golf course. Maybe it's pictures of the pool. Maybe it's something you didn't include within the actual listing images themselves. But you just have the ability to upload a couple additional images and then you can continue to add as many of those content blocks as you would like. Really, really simple, really, really easy. And then when you're ready, you're just going to publish it. And then once it's, I got to clear out the content block. Let me get it because I didn't actually upload anything. Let me publish it now. And then once it's published, we now have a page that it takes a few minutes for it to publish, but then we can actually drive traffic to that's a little bit different, a little bit unique. What's really nice about this, if you have a great listing and you've done this on a couple of really high quality listings, this is a page you control. It doesn't disappear. It's not like when the property gets marked sold in the MLS, this disappears. You could still use this as an example on your next luxury listing appointment to say, hey, one of the things that I'm going to offer you is a single listing website, right? This is a website dedicated to just showcasing your listing. I can do a video. I can do this. I can do all these amazing things with it. And then it's just another way for you to kind of prove your value or justify your value, I should say, in the eyes of a seller. I know we're going through it really quick. The intention is not to spend a whole lot of time building this, but this is just a really cool feature that I don't see people use because it's a little bit more advanced. It takes a little bit more time. Any specific questions regarding this? I don't think that any of this really is going to matter. The only thing that I would tell you, once it's published, it'll take a few moments, but then you actually will be able to access that link from the dashboard screen. So when we go to the dashboard screen, and here's our list of all the pages we've built. Here is that wonderful listing page, and then we can click on it, and we should be able to pull it up. It's going to take a few. We'll come back to it at the tail end when it generates the link. It takes a little bit of time for it to generate that link, but I just wanted to mention that to you. All right. The next quick thing that I'm going to mention, and I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this because there's other things I want to get to the integrations and how you can do some cool stuff with Canva and Google Forms and stuff in your website. But I do want to mention one of the most common questions I get from people is, that's not going to work. Let me go here. They want to edit their menu across the top. You have the ability to change your menu that appears across the top of the site. There's a couple caveats with this. Here you can see I've already changed mine, right? Click here for Google, right? That's all it does. I could have links to different builders. I could have links to community pages. I can do anything and everything that I want. This is how I can customize it. But there's a couple caveats. You don't edit the existing menu items. You build a whole brand new menu. And what I mean by that is you're not going to be able to pick and choose what's there in existence. If you want to have the same links that are there and just add additional ones, when you build this menu, you will have to add every link that you want. Does that make sense? It's incredibly easy to do. It just takes a little bit of time. When we're in the dashboard screen, we're going to click the plus sign up at the top. Scroll down and we're going to see there's this option here for page navigation, right? We're navigating the page and there's always one that leaves early. She's gone. I just lost her. Happened. She's like, page navigation, what? No. Oh, all right. So when we click it, we're starting the new page navigation. Like anything, we have to give it an internal name. We'll call this custom menu 1, right? This is my custom menu. This is how I'm going to identify it when I say I want you to start to use this new menu. The next thing I'm going to do is add a simple navigation item, right? Sounds really nerdy, simple navigation item. Basically, what do I want to appear in the menu, right? The first thing I have to decide, is it a navigation link or is it a navigation text? What's the difference? Well, it's really simple. A link is something you can click on that will drive them somewhere else. Text is just something that you may identify. So an example could be, you could have a menu item that says local communities is the text. And then below that local communities are the links to the different local community pages you may have built or you may link to. Does that make sense? Text is just identifying, it's just like a header. Yes, ma'am.
So like when you're on your website and you have about me, you can click that and then what's brought up below it could be the links.
100%. There's a way to put those links below it 100%. So we're just going to quickly, I'm just going to show you how easy it is to add a link, right? I want to show you how easy it is to add a couple links and then switch the navigation, but also how to switch it back. If you're like, oh, I messed it up. I don't want my menu to disappear, how you can actually put it back to the original way. So when we click on navigation link, the first thing we got to do is we got to give it some text. Like, this is the name of the link. Like, what is the link going to be? In this case, we'll just say Facebook, right? I'm just going to create a link to Facebook. It's just the easiest thing for me to do. So I'm going to create a link to Facebook. And then below that, we have our link section. This is where we determine what are we linking to. Internal allows us to link to pages we've already built. So if I were to select internal, right, and then go to the main section here and hit the little magnifying glass, this is going to bring up a list of all those pages I built. Look, for instance, here's the welcome to the page I just built. If I wanted to create an external link to that listing page, I could select that. And now when they click that link, they'll be driven to that page via my menu, right? Very simple, very easy, right? Of course, over here, I'm going to just mention this. From this screen here in the lower left-hand corner, you could actually, if you're like, oh, I haven't built that page yet, you could then build it from this section, then later select it. I wouldn't go that path. Build your pages first and then select them after they're built. Way easier process, less confusing, but then you would just literally just select your specific link. When we do external, this is where we're going to plug in the URL of the page we're going to drive people to. So if this is going to Facebook, for instance, I would type in https://facebook.com. So now my link will be named Facebook on my menu. And when they click on it, it'll go to facebook.com. This could be great to link to city pages. This could, maybe you are in a relationship with a builder. One of the number one questions we get a lot of agents, I'm in a relationship with a builder on my agent website. I would love to be able to link to my builder's website. This is how you do it, right? One of the other ways that this is leveraged a lot of times, even though our websites they've come a long way from the ability to customize them. You can customize them pretty good now, but they're never going to be as customizable if you went to a third-party website designer who can like just build you something from scratch. So I've seen some people who have that third-party website because they can do a more unique look. They will then use our website, our agent sites, as their MLS integration, their search functionality. So that way they just provide a link back to their homepage, their main site at the top. So they drive, if you want to do a search, you get driven to your agent website, and then there's a link back at the top that they can click to go back to your main site, if that makes any sense, right? It's just a way to kind of bounce back and forth. A couple other things, you don't need to necessarily worry about this agent card stuff. The advanced section, this is just where you kind of decide how does it open. So when someone clicks on the link, do you want them to automatically open it up in a new tab or a new window? Or do you want it to open up in the same tab? So an example would be when they click Facebook, instead of Facebook opening up in a new tab within Chrome, Facebook is actually on my homepage, they're immediately gonna go to Facebook. It doesn't change it doesn't open up a new tab. They just go to a new website within that same tab. Does that make sense? So it's a little bit more advanced. In most cases, you'll probably do new window and tab, but there are scenarios where you may want them to stay within the same experience. Attributes, this is a little bit deeper. So I don't want to spend too much time on this, because here's the truth. Attributes are going to be things that you're only really, if you know what an attribute is already, then you're going to be interested in it. But attributes basically allow us to pass certain pieces of information through that link to the receiving website. So if you want to learn more about that, if that's like, oh man, I have an idea where I need that to happen, reach out to me and we'll dive deeper into it. But that's just kind of, you can add attributes to these links that we're kind of pushing out. And then it's that simple, right? We've done a link. I can go further down. I can continue to add another simple navigation item. I can then, in this case, let's just say I'm going to do a navigation link. I'm going to do internal. I'm going to click the little thing. Maybe I link to this page, whatever it is. I'm just going to continue. I give it, it's already got a title. When I'm done building out my links, I'm going to hit publish in the upper right-hand corner. Oh, what do I not have? Because I didn't want to do an attribute. My apologies. Let me publish this. Now, by publishing it, this doesn't make your navigation live. We just built new navigation. Once the navigation has been built, we need to then switch to it. So this is really easy to do. We're going to go in the upper left-hand corner. We're going to click our little hamburger button. We're going to go to organization site. When we click organization site, it's going to take us to a section that we want to be very, very cautious with what we change in here, because there could be some things that could cause some issues. Basically, the biggest thing you want to stay away from is changing your quid here, your name here. Just stay away from that. That can mess things up. But when we scroll down, we're going to look for navigation source. And then for most of you, it's actually going to be on inherited organization site. This is your default navigation, right? This is the default that comes with your site. When you want to now select the one we just saved, you're going to drop this down, go to custom, drop this little arrow down, and now you're going to see a list of all the different navigations I've built. But here's that custom menu one we just made. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to hit save. And it takes a couple minutes, but now when we go back to my site, there you go. You can see here's my new links that I created. Does that make sense? You can now, there's more to it. You can build nested links, as you had mentioned earlier, if you want drop downs and different things and whatever it is, that's all possible. But if at any given point, you're like, oh, I messed this up, that's not what I wanted to do, you're just going to go back to that organizational site, go all the way down, and under custom org site navigation, select the inherited one, because that's what you have inherited. You're going to hit save. It's been saved. Once again, it can take a couple minutes. That was pretty quick, so let's refresh it. So it may take a few minutes for it to switch back, but eventually it will switch back to the original navigation. Any questions regarding that? I know we're going through it quick. It is a little bit more advanced, but this is the advanced class. This is the stuff most agents are like, wait a minute, modify what? Navigation who? I'm not interested in that, Josh. The good thing is you have an amazing one here in Pamela that can help you walk through and build your own custom navigations if that's what you're interested in. All right, so now let's actually dive into how we can start to leverage the site in different ways. The number one request that I get from most agents or the number one concerns most agents have when it comes to our agent websites is how we capture data. So we do have the ability to have forms in our site, but you can't add questions to those forms, right? The forms are standard contact forms. So sometimes there may be a scenario where you want to capture more information. A great example would be a buyer intake form. What I see is sometimes what a lot of agents like to do, they like to have a questionnaire that they hand their buyers or possibly their sellers ahead of time to have them fill pieces of information out that will actually help, build out their contact card, identify key points within the buyer, like within the relationship, questions that you may ask, or you may have them fill it out in a buyer packet of some sort when you go and you meet with them. You can now turn that into a digital experience. So the easiest way to do that is first, we're going to build a form. Sure can.
So with that form though, if they're already like a user on your website, like they logged in,
Mhm.
if they filled that out, would that go in their profile if you had, like, can you map any of the questions?
So that's a great question. So we're going to talk about that at the tail end of this. Right now, we're just going to focus on building a form, how to capture the information, when you capture information through this form, where does it show up, and then talk about strategies on how we could potentially get that into command. Does that make sense? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build a form, a Google form per se. And the easiest way to do that is open up a tab on your Chrome browser and go to forms.google.com. Now, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on how to build a form, right? If you need help building a form, it's incredibly easy. I'll show you just some quick broad strokes. I already have a form built that I'm just going to use as an example. But when you're on the the Forms website to build a form, you're just going to click the blank form option, right? You're going to give a form a title, test form, right? I can spell. Below this are going to be the questions, right? So they give you one default question. When you click on the question, you have options. Do you want it to be multiple choice? Do you want a short answer? Do you want it a paragraph? Do you want it as a checkbox? Do you want it as a dropdown? Do you want them to upload a file to you in some form or some fashion? There's a bunch of additional options, not necessarily going to go into all of them, but it's just really, really easy, right? Short answers are going to be for things like, yeah, it's going to be like name, right?
Can you make those required?
You 100% can. In the lower right-hand corner is where you have this little toggle. You can make it required. If you're like, hey, I want a specific field for first name, and then I also want one for last name, to add a new question, you can always hit this little plus sign and add a new question. But if you know it's going to be a short answer, you can hit this duplicate option. So now I just duplicate it. Now I can type in last name. Right, so I'm building it out. The short answer text, this is just going to show you the space that they have, right? So when you do a short answer, it's a sentence at most. It's 3-4 words. It's not a paragraph. If you're asking, why are you wanting to list your house? That would be a paragraph response, unless they can answer it in a sentence or less. Maybe it can be like, my wife's going to divorce me, so I want to get the money and run. Who knows what their desires are? That's a joke. You can laugh. Sometimes it's funny. Of course, maybe not for some people. I just ruined it. Multiple choice, right? A, B, C, right? Here is your choices. Like, what is your preferred communication method, right? How do you want me to communicate with you more? Right? What's most important, right? If there's questions that that I'm looking for 1 of 5 answers, you'll build those as additional options. And of course, you can make those required. You can delete them as well. All those amazing things.
So you can make these forms specific for if you're doing a listing versus if you're having a buyer, like you can have them specific towards those people.
For sure. For sure, you can have as many forms as you want.
Okay.
So yeah, if you have a seller questionnaire, a buyer questionnaire, 100%, those are two different forms that are gonna live on two different pages. I'm gonna use, so for my purposes, for our class, I'm actually going to use a buyer form, a buyer intake form that I've created. So I'm just gonna dive into one. Let me pull it up. Let me switch my profile. Bear with me here. So here's the buyer consultation form that I built for this class, right? What are your full names? What's your best phone number? What's your email address, preferred contact method? Who's going to be a part of the buyer decision? Where are you currently living? Are you currently renting? Blah, 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 blah. What's your prompting your move? So on and so forth, right? I just had AI generate me a buyer form just so I had some depth to add to it, right? Once I've built the form, the next thing I'm going to do is select responses. Responses is how we can see how many people have responded to it, but this is also where we can determine how we start to collect the data, and also most importantly, how we get notified if someone actually uses the form. So if I want to dump all of these responses to a Google Sheet, so that way I can see everything all at once, fantastic. After I'm done building the form, I'm going to click the link to Google Sheets. It's going to say, hey, we're going to create a new spreadsheet, right? If I'm going to create a new spreadsheet, fantastic. It's going to name it the same as the buyer consultation questionnaire. I could have it add to an existing spreadsheet. I'm going to create a brand new one. Fantastic. Now it's going to pull up this spreadsheet here. So when anyone fills it out, I will have access to this form, and their data will get plugged in there, and I'll have it all in one nice, easy to digest spreadsheet. Additionally, under responses over here to the right-hand side, when I click the three little dots, this is where I want to get email notifications for new responses. If you do not have that checked, someone starts to fill out your forms, the only way you're going to know they filled out your form is if you're looking at the spreadsheet or you're checking your responses section here within the form itself. With that turned on, now I'm going to start getting emails when people fill out that form. Any questions regarding that? Perfect. The next thing we're going to dive into quickly is settings. So settings is just how you can kind of dictate a few things around the forms. The biggest thing that I'm just going to mention with this, you do have the ability to turn something into a quiz. So for some odd reason, if you wanted to build a quiz around this and then have your clients take a quiz, I don't know, whatever you want to do, you can do that. Basically, it's just like a real quiz. You give questions and then you provide the form, the answers, and it will quickly determine did they pass it or not, right? They'll get the real life feedback if they were taking a quiz. Responses is important. There's a couple things you just want to be careful of. You do not want to collect email addresses through here. If you want their email address, you're just going to create a short answer field for their email address. The reason we do not want to collect the email addresses here is when you tell the form to collect email addresses, it's going to force them to log into Google to use the form. Does that make sense? So now they can't just go to the form if they don't have a Gmail account, if they're not logged into their Gmail account, if they're not like any of that, they will have to log in first before they can actually fill out the form. So it's typically not a great idea, right? It's kind of the same idea as well. If you do any of these kind of things, like if you want to limit it to one response, if you don't want someone to fill out the form multiple times, you can turn that on, but they will have to log in because it's going to use that Google account to verify that they haven't submitted the form. There's a couple other things in here, things that really don't matter too much. The next thing I'm going to quickly mention is this little color, this painter's palette in the upper right-hand corner. When you click on this, this is where you can change the text, the font, if you wanted to add a image header, if you wanted to change the color of the form, if you wanted to add your own unique color to give it a little bit of a different look, feel free to do so. And then, of course, at any time, if you want to preview the form, you can just hit the preview, the little eye here. This will preview what the form looks like. Fantastic. And when you're ready, you can just publish the form. And then the biggest thing you want to make sure when you're publishing the form is going to be this. Once the form's published, go to the share section. And under general access, you want to make sure the responding viewer, anyone with the link. By default, when you build forms inside of your KW Google account, it's going to restrict it to Keller Williams. So what that basically means, they have to have a kw.com email address to use the form. We want anyone with the link to use the form. Does that make sense? So we're going to make sure we select anyone with the link. We're going to hit done. Our form is now ready for us to take and build to our website. So this is how we do that. We're going to go in the upper right-hand corner and click the three little dots. And you're going to notice there's this option here called Embed HTML. What this is going to do is generate what we refer to in the nerd world as an iframe link. And basically all an iframe is we take an existing web page and we're putting it on another page, right? So we're framing that web page into another page, right? It's an iframe. So we're going to see it. We're going to click copy because we want that iframe link. So it's going to copy all of it. It tells us it copied it to our clipboard. And then now we're going to go back to our agent website, back into our expert mode. And the first thing we're going to do is build a HTML module for this form. We're not even building our page yet. So what we're going to do is go to the top, hit the plus sign, and we're going to scroll down until we see HTML embed module. You're going to notice right below that it says iframe embed module. And your first instinct is going to be, wait a minute, Josh. I just copied iframe. You just explained iframe. Why am I not selecting iframe? The short answer is this. Because we have the brackets already, since we selected true iframe code, we don't need to build an iframe. We just need to embed the HTML code we already have. If we were to do iframe embed, it would be helping us build an iframe. So if there's a website that you want to iframe into your website, but that website doesn't have iframe code available for you to quickly copy, you would use the iframe embed option to try to build your own iframe. I know that's a lot of nerdy stuff, but that is the difference, right? So when we're going to select HTML embed module, it's going to bring up our embed module. Once again, I got to give it a name. I got to identify this module an internal name. So that way later when I want to add it to a website, I can. So in this case, I'm going to call it buyer intake question. I don't know how to spell questionnaire. Don't judge me. So it's just probably got like AI. There's two N's in it. I don't know what they're doing. It's weird. And then right below that is the raw HTML. This is where we're going to paste in that link that we just copied. And here you can see, here's the example. It's showing us, hey, here's our buyer questionnaire. But I want to show one other thing. You're going to notice on how this looks, at least on desktop, right? It's all the way to the left. If someone were to go to this form on a website, it's going to be all the way to the left. Some people like things centered, right? It looks weird all the way to the left. Now on mobile, right, it's not really going to matter because when you're a mobile portrait, right, it's going to be vertical, right? So what we're going to want to do if we want to center this is we're going to add some additional pieces of information to this code. We are going to what we refer to as wrap it in a div. So we're going to wrap, and basically you don't really care what a div is per se, but a div is a container within a website that I can wrap around another element, in this case my iframe, and then within the div I can center things. So I'm going to go right above the iframe. I'm going to hit enter and I'm going to paste in. And you don't need to write this down. We'll make sure that if you're interested, but it's going to say div style equals text align center. So you'll notice the moment I do it, it already shifted it over into the center. So now this module by default will always be shifted into the center. Good rule of thumb though is we do need to end the div. So we have to close it. So if you notice, we opened it up with caret div, and then I'm closing it with caret slash div. Super nerdy, don't worry about it. Just note that whenever we wrap something, we do have to have an ending tag, a close tag. So that way the browser knows when to stop centering the element. Once I have this information in, I'm going to click publish. And it has now been embedded. So, or added to our website, I should say. So now I'm going to go back to our dashboard screen by hitting that hamburger button. Now I want to build my buyer intake page. So for that, I'm going to select custom page. You may be thinking, well, Josh, why wouldn't I select landing page? Why a custom page, not a landing page? A custom page by design within this tool is pages that are designed to be on your website forever, right? These are pages you want to appear in the menu if you want. These are forever pages. Landing pages are temporary, right? Landing pages are where you're driving traffic to land them for a temporary reason, right? We're going to talk about when you may want to build a landing page here in a little bit. So in this case, we're going to do a custom page. And once again, incredibly simple. The right-hand side's our preview. The left-hand side's how we build it. So maybe the page title is buyer intake form, right? You go ahead and it creates the little the internal name for me so I can identify it. So let me add this just so I can see that, right? This is my buyer intake form. As I go through it, the subtitle would be if I wanted any additional text below that heading. Further down, if I didn't want the text of that heading, of course, I could just hide the title. I have the ability to upload images, so maybe I build a really cool Canva graphic or something that I would want there that says buyer intake form instead. You know, I could do that. I can click add image, hit the magnifying glass to browse any of the existing images. So maybe I'm going to do this really cool. Here we go. Someone typing on a keypad. I selected it. I'm going to hit the X. And now here's what my header looks like. If I'm like, Josh, this looks terrible, I don't want anything to do with it. Under the page header, I can actually tell it none. So that way it'll hide that entire header. But I'm going to leave it just for the moment. And then as I go further down, I'm going to get to the contents section. And this is where I can do a couple different things. When I hit add module, I of course can upload additional images. I have all these different modules I can add, all these other things we're not going to go deep into. But when I scroll all the way down, I'm going to see the HTML embed, right? We created an HTML embed module for that buyer intake form. I'm going to select it. I'm going to drop down my little arrow, and there's that buyer intake questionnaire that I made earlier. I can click on it. It's going to drop it in. Here you can see my buyer intake questionnaire. I have the ability, if I wanted to hide this page in the navigation, I didn't want it to automatically appear, I could do that as well. And then the last thing before I hit publish, before I do anything else, I want to go to URLs at the top. URLs is where I determine the slug that this page lives under. What is a slug?
It's a little slimy worm.
It is, and it moves slow, and you know what? Actually fairly tasty. If you put them over a campfire, delicious. Delicious. Just like a marshmallow. It's like nature's marshmallow. But you know, it's just it's delicious. So look, I was a Boy Scout once. You know,
Have some more.
they didn't have s'mores. It was either spam or slugs. And if you ever had spam, ugh, that's right.
Spam is.
It is slugs. It's Hawaiian slugs. So we're going to see this thing called add URL. This is where we determine what we want that slash to be. The slug is going to be, for instance, my website is joshuaboatman.kw.com / anything after the slash is what we call the slug. So if I call this BQ, right? If I put, I want my slug to be as small as possible. So that way, maybe it's easy for me to tell someone, hey, go to joshboatman.kw.com / BQ. That's my buyer questionnaire, right? You could type out buyer dash questionnaire, right? You could type it out buyer, whatever you want to call it, right? I like short URLs. I like URLs that are shorter. A couple things just when building out a slug, you can't do spaces. You either do dashes or underscores if you want spaces. So if you want buyer dash questionnaire, can't spell it, you can do that. I guess I'm just going to do BQ, just something simple. And then once I've added my URL, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit publish. And it's gonna take a few moments, but I've now built this page that lives on my website that now I can drive traffic to when I'm meeting with a buyer for them to fill it out. So rather than sending them a Google form link or whatever it is, I could even build it into a smart plan. Imagine a world where I have a smart plan that has this link already in the text or the email that we send to the client, and they come in and then my admin sends them the, did you just throw something at her? Do I have to ask you to leave?
And with her nose in the corner.
Two demerits, no, but now you're driving traffic to your website in a form that lives on your website. It's a little bit more professional. It's a little bit easier, right? So now someone goes to that page. And actually I gotta type it in because it hasn't updated yet, but we'll see if it's up. It can take about 5 minutes for a page to go live. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's gonna take a few moments, but that link will work. And now they can fill out that form on my website. And then once they fill it out, it'll note, and not only will it get entered into this spreadsheet, but I will receive an email and then I can do with that information as I see fit. Any questions thus far? Now, James brought up a great point in the very beginning, a great question. The first question is, how can I get this information to go into command? Is there a path where if they fill out this Google form that they could get pushed into my command? The answer is yes, there is a path where if it's a new entry, it can get pushed into your command. That is via a third-party tool called Zapier. Right? If you've never heard of Zapier, you may have heard of it as Zapier. It's not Zapier, it's Zapier because it makes you happier. Right? Zapier. That is a path that we're not necessarily going to cover today, but you do have to have a Zapier account. And then we do have a command integration where you can map the values from these responses and then push them into command. Now, you have to be careful and you have to have a plan for that. If we look at my buyer consultation, for instance, I ask a lot of questions. There isn't a field called "Have you spoken with the lender or been pre-approved for a mortgage" in a command contact card, right? So you can create custom fields inside of command. And the better solution is when you go through, if you go down the Zapier route, you can just have all this information added to a note. So when it gets zapped into your command, right, we can identify that they came from your buyer questionnaire, right? We can even tie that to a smart plan that triggers if someone fills out your buyer questionnaire, right? However you want to do it. Then we can also have any of their responses get mapped to a note within that contact. So you can quickly go to that contact's notes and see a list of all their responses. There's a path for that. Now, you asked a great question, James, if they already exist in your database, what happens? Well, unfortunately, right now, the contact would not get created. It doesn't get updated because the way the Zap connection works within command, it creates new contacts. It doesn't update existing contacts. And if a contact already exists, then unfortunately, it can't push that new information in. Now, there is a path that I haven't explored, and I'm only mentioning this because you are on the more technical spectrum of things. We do have an integration with API Nation. And API Nation allows us to sync changes back and forth. What I don't know, and I've never tested through, I know, for instance, API Nation can sync Google Forms and Google Contacts to command. What I don't know will happen is if API Nation will detect that that contact already exists via the email address and then update it versus attempt to create a new one. I know if API Nation creates the contact in your command, we can sync those changes back and forth. What I don't know is what happens if the contact already exists. That'd be something we'd have to test through to see what happens. And I'd be more than happy to partner with you to test through that and let's see what we can do. Really simple though, right? I mean, I know it's a lot, but it's really simple, right? We just created a Google form, we made some adjustments, and we then embedded it into a web page, and now we have a web page we can drive traffic to. You can do a buyer questionnaire, right? Think of all the different pieces of information you want to capture. That way it's on a very easy way for you to capture that information.
Do you think they're gonna work on, like actually having a forms page in there rather than embedding it this way?
So so we do have existing forms. The better question is, are they gonna work on a way for us to create our own custom forms, right? The answer is, I've heard they're in discussion with it. I think the biggest issue we run into situations like that, is we have to be careful what information people are trying to capture. You know what I mean? Like there's certain things you have to be careful with, at least from a KWI standpoint, what information is going to be captured and then how does it get mapped. I know they're in discussion with the idea of trying to give more flexibility to allow you to build your own forms. So I'm hopeful in the future they will. But this is ultimately the easiest way for us to do this kind of currently and still have some similar functionality. Okay, any other questions on this before I dive into, I know we're about an hour, we're 10 minutes over, so I appreciate you guys sticking, but I have about 15 more minutes because I just want to walk through how you can take some Canva designs and integrate them into your website the same way. So it's the same exact process, but this time what you're going to do is find your Canva design something in Canva, right? So here's a great design that I did. I found a flyer. Maybe I want to, here's a great example. I have an agent. She does commercial as well, right? Well, one thing you know about commercial properties is commercial properties don't come over into command, right? Most commercial properties aren't listed in the MLS. They're listed on, you know, what are they? LoopNet, and then the other one that's crazy, CoStar, right? That's where commercial properties live, and we don't have integrations into that. She's like, Josh, I would really love to be able to advertise my commercial properties on my website. How can I do that? Well, she can't do a property landing page because to do a property landing page we talked about earlier, it actually has to be in the MLS. You have to search for a property that's in the MLS. So the solution we came up with is she built a really slick Canva design, that template that she'll use in Canva for her commercial properties. She'll update it in here. And whenever she's ready to then take this design and then embed it into a web page, all she has to do is click share in the upper right-hand corner. Once again, we have this embed link. We're going to click embed. It's going to be a public link, and we want the HTML public embed code. We don't want the smart embed. We want the HTML. We're going to copy it, and we're going to do the exact same thing that we did before. We're going to go to that plus sign at the top. We're going to do an HTML embed module, right? We're creating a new module. I'm going to give it a name like 123 Sesame Street, whatever, commercial, however you want to identify it. We're going to paste that link in there. And then it's going to allow us to create an embed module that I can then plug in on a landing page on my website. I'm not going to go through that process because we just did it, but it's just the same thing, right? Once it's published, I would go create a new page, give it a title, give it a header. And then when I get to that content section and I'm adding a module, I'm going to select the HTML module and then select the one that I just created.
And since that's embedded in Canva, you had things linked to, just a word there, would it then direct them on the website as well?
So can you just give me an example?
Like if you were to
Hyperlink something or whatever, for sure. So you could do hyperlinks. Now that's probably, if you have things that are, because it's actually truly embedded, it's a digital thing. So if you have hyperlinks within things that they can click on, they should, because it lives on Canva. If the hyperlink works in the preview of Canva, it will work when it's embedded because it's just a page within a page, if that makes sense. So where could this come into play though? And here's a great example. And when I mentioned earlier, you may use a landing page. I actually have an agent. She does a pumpkin giveaway, right? So basically she has an agreement with a local pumpkin patch and it's this big deal. People show up. She has like hot chocolate and coffee and pictures and stuff like that. And what she would use in the past was either a Facebook event or an Eventbrite or something to try to, you got to register to show up. So I know how many people, whatever it is. So what we're going to do is she's going to design a graphic inside of Canva. We're gonna embed this graphic on a page, and then right below that, we're gonna embed a Google form that she can ask all the questions that she wants to know. How many kids are you bringing? Is there any allergies? Blah, 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 blah. So on one single page on her website that she drives all the traffic to, she can have a really slick little graphic. And then right below that, she can have a Google form that captures all the information and just alerts her via email when stuff is filled out. Now, some people will be like, well, Josh, can't you just download this image and then upload it to the website as well? Do you have to embed it from Canva? 100% you can. The thing I like about embedding is it's just a little bit easier for me because instead of downloading, turn around and uploading. The other thing that's really cool about embedding, if I needed to change the time, I just have to go to the Canva design and just change the Canva design. Because once I do that, it changes the information. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It changes the information that's embedded. Whereas if it was a static design, I would need to make the change. I would need to download the design. I would then need to turn around and update the graphic on my web page. But when I'm embedding it, it's pulling the live version of whatever I do here. So whatever I change here will show up on the website. I like that kind of functionality, but that's just me. So outside of that, what have we covered today? We've talked about service areas. Fantastic, right? We talked about forest registration. Amazing, right? We talked about building a property landing page. Now you can do videos and amazing things like that. Additional content, create some single listing websites, give yourself some value to your sellers. I love that, right? We then dove into building Google Forms and how we can use Google Forms and embed them on our website so we can drive all the traffic to collect the information. So we're keeping everything consistent, right? Fantastic. It can go to forms. The forms can go to spreadsheets and you can receive notifications by email. And if you're interested, there's a path where we can zap those leads into command. Additionally, you can build designs inside of Canva and then take those designs and embed them to your website. I have people that what they're doing, they don't like the Teams module for their real estate team that we provide inside of KW. So they're building a Canva image with their team's information and they're just going to embed that. The one thing that I will give you tip wise though, when you are building something inside of Canva that you're going to embed on your website, try to design it with blocks stacked on top of blocks. Don't have images next to each other. Try to avoid that as much as you can because it's an embedded image. When you go on mobile, it's just going to shrink everything left and right. It's not going to move blocks below blocks. It's not mobile responsive when you build something like that because it's in an iframe. Iframes are not mobile responsive. So design it so that way it looks clear from a vertical standpoint. This would show up great vertically on someone's website or on their phone because it's just information. Outside of that, that is the advanced website class. Hopefully it was advanced enough for you guys. Any questions, concerns, criticisms, compliments?
We love Josh.
Well,
That doesn't.
I love the turnout. Seriously, this is a lot. The intention of this was not for you to be an expert on this. We have this recorded, which will be fantastic. But this is to kind of get your mindset moving. And if you need help, Pamela's here as a resource. I'm here as a resource. Especially when it comes to Google Forms. The first thing is